If the Seeds of Time were the rock and roll lords of Vancouver, then Alan Horowitz, their sometime guitarist, was the crown prince. He even dressed like one. In fact, if anyone had been born to rock and roll royalty, it was he. Originally Alan Haraco, he started an early North Vancouver band called Segment 41 in 1965 and never looked back. He changed his name again and formed the Alan Harlow Band. He then went on to help form the great Canadian band Prism, which tours till this day. We were rightly in awe of Horowitz when he arrived at our first practice. He was better dressed for practice than the rest of us were on stage. He made me look like a pauper, and later went on to describe me thus: Dave was not your typical rock star wannabe. He didn't even try to affect that stance. While not of the wiry frame, layered hair, and sculpted facial features of the gum-chewing rockers of the day, he had a high-energy stage presence and way of moving that worked well. The white shoes, various cuts of sports jackets, even square dance lace ties told you he was here to testify. I always imagined if Hemingway and the Lost Generation gang had decided to rock in Paris during their stay in the 1920s, Dave would be their man. He was literate rock. Our guitar player, Al Hovden, had recruited him on the strength that we'd be getting more good gigs from Sam Feldman, and sure enough, within 2 weeks, one came through.
And I think they said that they had a world tour, especially Williams Lake. And would I like to come, like now? And I said, okay.
I felt sure Horowitz was used to the high life of traveling in some deluxe window van with rows of seats in the back while on tour. So with an almost physical act of will, I forced myself to abandon protocol and let him take the front seat in the burner van. I felt a selfless Buddha-like sacrifice would bode well for the trip and earn us merit. Williams Lake is cattle country, the land of the purple sagebrush, and in 1970 it still showed traces of a Wild West cow town.
Fuck you! Fuck you!
As we drove out to the rough edge of town near the railway tracks, I hoped Horowitz wasn't expecting the Holiday Inn. Instead of horses on hitching posts, there was a row of Harley-Davidsons out front. We climbed out of the van and stretched our legs, in no rush to go inside.
Hey, you!
Shouted a voice from above. We all looked up. A hooker leaned out a window.
Come up to room 204. Shut up, asshole!
Another shouted at her, poking her head from a different window.
Come up to room 305.
It was the kind of thing that might have occurred in 1870s Dodge City at the Long Branch Saloon before Marshal Dillon cleaned up the town in Gunsmoke. Possibly it was Town Heritage Week, and the hookers had been hired by the Chamber of Commerce to enhance the historical experience. Walking down the hallway was like traveling back to a distant time. The old-fashioned patterned carpets even had authentic turn-of-the-century urine stains. Room amenities were unique. They offered only scalding hot water. Our rooms overlooked a flat tar and gravel roof. The remains of thousands of broken bottles, hurled down by generations of drunks from the adjacent hotel, glittered in the blazing late afternoon sun. Spending any time in this place was out of the question, so we trudged back downstairs to drive out and search for the venue. "Hold on a minute," came a voice from behind the desk. It wasn't the desk clerk, but the manager. We walked over. "You fellas in a band, are you?" "Yeah, the Burner Boys," Tim replied evenly. "Well, don't fuck with them hogs outside. 2 days ago, some arsehole tipped one over and the whole bunch went down. The bikers nearly tore him in half, plus half the block." "No problem," replied Horowitz quickly, ever the diplomat. "We're just here to play a dance." "Well, the hotel will be locked after 2 in the morning." "No way," I protested. "We might be later. It's Stampede week. Every drunk yahoo in the province will be on the streets looking for trouble. I'm guessing you're from Vancouver?" We all nodded. Shit, he spat hair from his bushy mustache. "Some people don't know nothing." Thus admonished, we drove off and searched for the dance hall. Sure enough, as the manager had promised, there were hundreds of men walking the streets in deluxe cowboy trim. Roughhouse ranch hands fresh off the range, duded up and ready for a wild time. Squatting in the middle of the barren rodeo grounds, the square one-story roofless structure looked like Fort Apache. Locals had named it Squaw Hall.
And they didn't want Indians in their halls, so they built us a corral down there to dance on with a floor. They named our hall Squaw Hall. Probably for the squaws, right? Yeah. You could dance and watch the stars at the same time.
We unloaded our gear in the heat. I got a cold beer from the van and drained it in one swallow. Then I got another and went out to mix with the cowboys and Indian crowd already gathering outside the front doors. I drifted through them as they milled about smoking, swearing, and spitting in the dust. Then I heard a voice. "Hey, you!" I spun around expecting to see a cowboy wanting to beat up a hippie. Instead, I saw a pencil-necked cop. "Me?" "Yeah, you. Get over here." I walked over. "What's that in your hand?" "Last time I looked, it was a beer." "Oh, yeah, smartass. You're under arrest." "What for?" "Drinking in a public place." He opened the back door of the squad car. "Get in." He locked me in the back seat. After about 20 minutes, he'd stuffed the car with others of my kind and drove us all to the police station. In the lobby was a line of rowdy drunks waiting to be processed, while cops stood against the wall waiting to kick ass. I waited interminably. The line didn't seem to be moving. Looking at my watch, I saw it was 8 o'clock. We had to be on stage at 8. I pushed my way up to the front desk and butted in. "Look here, I've got to talk to someone." "Back in line." "You've got to release me." "Shut up." "I'm the lead singer for the Burner Boys. We're playing at Squaw Hall. We're supposed to be on stage right now." "Get back in line." "Fine." I crossed my arms. "But if you don't let me go, there'll be no dance tonight." "That should stir up the rabble." The desk sergeant's brows knit. "Stay here." He went off and consulted a superior, then returned. "Beat it, but I don't want to see you again." Thus liberated, I retraced the route back to Squaw Hall on the hop.
It was time to play, and Al Hovden said, "Can you sing some of our songs?"
As I got near, I could hear the band playing. Yet strangely, the building was still surrounded by a crowd of people. Then I realized what had happened. The hall was full. These were the ones who'd been denied entrance. They'd camped outside and were drinking aggressively. Inside, the covered bleachers surrounding 3 sides of the building were standing room only, most with a drink in their hand. The air was thick with dope smoke. At the far end of Squaw Hall, the leaderless burners were doing their best to keep the crowd from erupting into spontaneous riot. I climbed on stage at the end of the first set and stepped up to the mic. "Yee-haw!" I roared. This they comprehended. They howled back. We started rocking through our hottest dance songs in an effort to wear them out.
It was 1930, and the hall was kinda dirty.
Then, in the third set, things changed. Al was singing when he looked up and saw an empty booze bottle spinning lazily through the sky coming from outside the hall. It seemed to be moving in slow motion as it arced into the hall and smashed on the floor. He later said it felt like an out-of-body experience as he watched it slowly approach until it was so close he could read the black velvet Canadian whiskey label. An answering bottle flew back over the wall and hit the mob that surrounded the hall outside. Then there were 2 more, then 5. Then the air was full of flying bottles. One struck the base of Al's mic stand and shattered. Yet to stop playing was unthinkable. Then the crowd inside the hall would turn on us too. We could only hang on for the ride and duck. A 2016 article in the Williams Lake Tribune newspaper stated, dances had become very rowdy and hazardous, so Squaw Hall was torn down and burned in 1975. But rumors still persist that arson was to blame, that someone or some group decided enough was enough. It was time to destroy the symbol of prejudice and control over the original peoples of the land. And the rumors also speak of a splendid display of irony as one last bottle was thrown into the building, putting an end to the legend and the shame associated with it forever.